You don't get a say. That was it. No warning, no lead-in, just the sentence, dropped like a door slamming shut. I took a breath I didn't know I was holding and waited for the follow-up that never came. The decision had already been made. The chair across from me rolled back an inch. A pen clicked once, then again, too loud, like he needed the sound to feel finished. This was minutes after I terminated his son. Clean process. Human resources signed, legal signed, every box checked. I'd done it the boring way, the only way that ever protects anyone. Apparently, not me. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't beg. I looked at the folder between us and asked one thing. Are you sure? The clicking stopped. He smiled. Not a cruel smile. Worse. A relieved one. Like I'd made his afternoon easier. That smile stayed with me longer than the words. My name is Keisha Monroe. I am 41 years old. I nodded once and stood up before my hands gave me away. They were shaking, bad enough that I tucked them into my jacket pockets. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I could also feel something else, heavier, settling in. Not anger, not yet. More like the moment you realize a mistake has already happened and you're just catching up to it. If you're wondering why I didn't fight right there, trust me. I asked myself the same thing, later, over and over. I walked out with nothing in my hands. No box, no goodbye tour. People avoided eye contact like it was contagious. That part hurt more than I expected. Halfway down the hall, my phone buzzed. I didn't check it. I already knew it wouldn't be from anyone brave enough to ask what just happened. I didn't know yet that this firing had triggered something else. Something automatic. Something he clearly forgot existed. The story you're about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revenge AITA. It is inspired by patterns of workplace power, silence, and retaliation, not by any single real person or company. Each story carries its own meaning, and none of them are meant to repeat the last. Back then, though, I wasn't thinking about meaning. I was thinking about the sound of that pen, and how confident he looked when he thought I was done. How many chances does someone get just because of their last name? I didn't ask that out loud. I learned early that saying it makes people uncomfortable. So I kept it in my head and did my job. His son wasn't evil. That's the part that still messes with me. He wasn't screaming at assistants or stealing lunch money. He was just careless in the way people are when they think someone else will clean up after them. Late approvals. Numbers pushed through without checking. Decisions signed off because he was in a hurry, or bored, or convinced nothing bad ever really sticks to him. The compliance office always smelled like burnt coffee. Like someone kept reheating the same mistake and hoping it would taste better. I remember standing there with a printout in my hand while he leaned against the counter, scrolling on his phone. This one needs a second review, a shrug, a half smile. It's fine. We've done worse. That was warning number 1. After that came the emails, short, direct, time-stamped. I stopped softening the language when he stopped pretending to read it. Human resources wanted me to coach him, said it gently, like a favor. Legal wanted patience, said it carefully, like a threat. Everyone agreed there was a problem. No one wanted to touch it. I sat across from him a week later with the file open between us. He didn't sit down, didn't even look at the pages. You're blowing this out of proportion. The words landed heavier than he expected. He must have seen it on my face because his tone shifted, just a little. My dad trusts me. That was the moment. Not dramatic, not loud, just clear. I signed the paperwork myself. No delegation, no committee, my name at the bottom. Ink still drying when I slid it across the table. He laughed at first, then he stopped. I knew right then I had crossed a line. Not professionally, personally. Maybe I should have waited. That thought still shows up when things get quiet. What if getting fired actually made things worse for them? I was home with my shoes still on, jacket half off, phone buzzing like it had something urgent to say, but no idea how to say it. The subject line didn't try to soften anything. Compliance notification, no greeting, no apology. Just a block of language that sounded like it had never met a human being. My termination had triggered a mandatory board notice. Automatic, not optional, not political. Required. I scrolled, slower this time. Reporting authority Keisha Monroe. I read it again, then a third time. Because that part didn't line up with how the last hour had gone. The fridge hummed too loud. I leaned my forehead against the cabinet and let it hum. It felt steadier than I did. There was a number at the bottom for questions. I didn't call it. I knew what would happen. Someone polite would explain the policy. Someone careful would say the words standard procedure. Nobody would sound surprised. Another line caught my eye. The timeline. The notice had to be submitted within a fixed window. No extensions. No approvals needed from management. It didn't care who fired me or why. The system just did what it was built to do. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, from a colleague who used to sit 2 doors down. "Did you really fire him?" I typed. Deleted. Typed again. Yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then nothing. I went back to the email, opened the link. A draft was already waiting for me, blank fields and a blinking cursor like it expected me to know what came next. He fired me fast, too fast, like he was trying to outrun something. This is the part where my stomach dropped. Not relief, something else. The kind of feeling you get when you realize the ground you're standing on isn't solid. But it isn't gone either. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started filling in the first line. Careful not to add anything that didn't belong there. What do you do with proof you hoped you'd never need? The file lived on my personal drive, not the company servers. Not the shared folders everyone pretended were secure, mine. The kind of place you only put things you don't want accidentally moved. It wasn't dramatic. No smoking gun screenshots. Just rows and rows of boring truth. Spreadsheets, timestamps, approval chains that led exactly where I said they did. The kind of stuff people wave off until it's printed and sitting in front of them. I kept it because I didn't trust him. That's the clean answer. The messier one is that I didn't trust myself to remember everything when it mattered. So I wrote it down, every time, quietly. I added one last page, a summary, short, clean, no adjectives, no anger, no in my opinion. Just dates, actions, outcomes. The words felt heavy even when they were plain. A message popped up on my phone while I was typing. Unknown number, you don't have to do this. I stared at it, didn't ask who it was, didn't reply. The cursor blinked like it was getting impatient. The laptop fan started whining, high and tired, like it had been carrying me longer than it signed up for. I closed every other window, left only the board portal open. The upload button sat there, too calm for what it was about to do. I swear, my finger hovered over submit longer than it should have. Another message came through. This won't end the way you think. I finished the last line, checked the dates one more time, saved, then uploaded. No confirmation screen, no reassuring green check mark, just silence, like I dropped something into deep water and had to wait to hear the splash. I shut the laptop and sat there with my hands flat on the table until the fan wound down. The file was gone from my drive, out of my hands. That part scared me more than I expected. I picked up my phone and turned it face down. The next move wasn't mine anymore. How can someone look so confident when they're already wrong? The elevator doors slid open before I could turn away. Bad timing, bad luck. He stepped in like the building still belonged to him, like nothing had shifted. He glanced at me, quick and dismissive, then pressed the button for the top floor, close enough that I could smell his aftershave. Too clean, too deliberate. This doesn't have to get messy, came out of him easy, casual, like advice you give someone who should be grateful you're even talking. Best thing you can do now is move on quietly. I nodded, the same nod I'd used in his office. Small, non-committal, the kind that lets people hear whatever they want. The elevator dinged between floors, too slow. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. I didn't check it, I didn't need to. I knew the timing. I knew what had already left my hands. He glanced down, noticed the vibration. His mouth twitched. That smile again, the relieved one. Like this conversation was a box he could finally check. Chicago's a small town, he added, lowering his voice. Not a threat, not exactly. More like a reminder. People talk. Another nod, still quiet, still letting him feel taller than he was. The doors opened. He stepped out first. Didn't look back, didn't have to. In his head, this was done. Sun handled. Problem removed. Damage contained. The doors slid shut. The elevator started moving again, empty now. My phone buzzed a second time. Longer, persistent. I leaned back against the wall and let the hum of the cables settle my breathing. I almost told him, almost warned him that quiet wasn't an option anymore, that something had already crossed a line he didn't even see. That's the part that scared me. How close I came to giving it away. By the time the elevator reached the lobby, the smile was gone from my face. Whatever came next was going to happen without my permission, or his. What if the room deciding your future pretends you're invisible? The meeting started without me. That part was clear right away. No name placard, no seat assignment. I took a chair near the back and kept my hands folded like I was waiting for instructions that weren't coming. The table filled up fast. Familiar faces, expensive suits, the kind of calm you get when people think the outcome is already agreed on. He took the floor like he always did. Easy voice, controlled pace. Every sentence sounded rehearsed, even the pauses. Heads nodded, pens moved. Someone murmured approval when he mentioned growth targets. Someone else smiled when he joked about a challenging quarter. No mention of my report, not even a glance in my direction. I stayed still, counted breaths. Tried not to look like I was waiting for something. The air carried a cheap cologne from across the table, sharp and distracting. It didn't belong in a room like this. Neither did I. Apparently. A vote came up. Routine. Hands lifted without hesitation. Another item cleared. More nodding, more confidence. This was the part where doubt crept in, quiet, persistent. Maybe I misunderstood the process. Maybe the file landed in the wrong queue. Maybe someone decided it could wait. Or worse, that it didn't matter. The chair tapped a pen against the table. Once, then again, familiar sound. Different room. A board member leaned toward the CEO and whispered something, too soft to hear. The CEO's smile tightened. Just a fraction. He adjusted his papers, shuffled them back into place. The agenda moved on. Still nothing. This is where I thought I screwed up. Completely. I shifted in my seat, fighting the urge to check my phone. Fighting the urge to stand up and say something stupid just to feel visible again. I didn't. I kept my eyes on the table and let the moment stretch. The chair cleared his throat. Not loud, not dramatic. Just enough to cut through the room. We'll pause here, he said, looking down at his notes. There's an item that needs to be addressed before we proceed. Every head turned toward him, including mine. The CEO didn't look at me. He didn't have to. The air had already changed. What happens when the truth shows up before you can spin it? The chair didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Item 3, termination triggered compliance report. That was all. The CEO's hand stopped mid-page, just for a second. Enough to notice, enough to matter. He looked down at his notes like they might rearrange themselves if he stared long enough. A binder slid across the table. Slow, deliberate. The sound of paper on wood carried farther than it should have. One of the board members adjusted her glasses and spoke without looking up. Dates first, then times, then the approvals. Each one read clean, like a list that had already decided where it was going. Another voice followed. Different accent, same direction. A name came up, his son's. The chair waited, let the pause stretch until it got uncomfortable. The son leaned forward, too fast, cleared his throat. Words came out in the wrong order. A justification landed before the explanation. That was new. He tried again, slower this time, but the confidence wasn't there anymore. A finger tapped the page. Once. This entry. The chair said, flat. You approved it after the warning was logged. The son nodded, then shook his head, then nodded again. The room stayed quiet. No one jumped in to rescue him. No one softened the moment. Another sheet moved. Another date. Another name. The CEO finally spoke. Calm, controlled. Too late. This is being taken out of context. Nobody answered right away. The binder slid again. Another member leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the paper instead of the people. Silence filled the space where an argument should have been. I sat still, hands in my lap, felt the cold settle in my chest, heavy and steady, not relief, not satisfaction, just distance. I didn't feel proud, I felt cold. The chair closed the binder and rested his hand on top of it, like that settled something. We'll need to address this before moving forward, he said. No one objected. Across the table, the CEO's jaw tightened. He didn't look at me, he didn't look at his son. He stared at the binder like it had betrayed him. The meeting didn't move on. It couldn't. How do you fight back when facts don't raise their voice? He tried to take control the only way he had left. By shrinking me. This is personal, he said, leaning back like he'd just solved it. She's upset. She's been emotional since the termination. A few heads turned, not toward me, toward the chair. I didn't move. I didn't explain. I let the room sit with that word for a beat longer than it deserved. Another board member flipped a page. Slow, careful. The sound landed between us like a line you don't cross back over. He pushed again. This is retaliation. She's framing a narrative. The chair didn't look at him. He looked at the binder, fingers resting on the edge like it might bite. I spoke once. That was it. This is documented. No heat, no apology. Just the sentence. The room shifted. You could feel it, not dramatic, subtle. A couple of people stopped writing. Someone else leaned back, arms crossed, eyes no longer friendly. The vote came without speeches. Names called, hands raised, not unanimous. Enough. Effective immediately, the chair said, voice steady. Operational authority is suspended pending review. The scrape of his chair cut across the room as he stood too fast. Wood on floor. Sharp. He opened his mouth, closed it, then sat back down like he'd remembered where he was. The chair didn't invite him to continue. He didn't need to. Meeting adjourned. People gathered papers. Quiet conversations started in the corners. No one looked at him. No one looked at me either. That felt right. I stayed seated until the room thinned. Let the noise pass around me instead of through me. My hands were steady now. That surprised me. That was the moment I realized he couldn't fix this. Not with words, not with pressure, not with time. I stood, picked up my notebook, and walked out without waiting for permission. What does winning look like when nobody celebrates? The email about his son came first. Short, clinical, terminated effective immediately. No severance, no appeal window. Final. I read it twice and felt nothing. That bothered me more than it should have. The next message followed an hour later. The CEO's operational authority suspended. Temporary on paper, permanent in practice. The investigation opened quietly, like they were afraid of making noise around it. Names assigned. Deadline set. No commentary. Human Resources reached out before lunch. A call I almost didn't take. We can reinstate you, she said. Voice careful, like she was stepping around broken glass. Same title, expanded scope. We'll make it right. I stared at the wall while she talked. Let her fill the space. Promises came easy now. Support, stability. A chance to put this behind us. No, I said. One word. It landed heavier than I expected. She paused, then tried again. You don't have to decide today. I already did. There was a beat where I thought she might argue. She didn't. She thanked me for my time like we were ending a normal call. Like this was normal. The board reconvened in the afternoon. Smaller group, quieter room. The vote was procedural this time. I raised my hand when it came to compliance oversight, then lowered it when it was done. No speeches, no eye contact. Someone asked if I wanted to stay for the next item. I'm finished, I said, already standing. The heavy door closed behind me with a sound that felt final. Not dramatic, just solid, like something sealing itself. Saying no felt harder than everything else. I walked down the hall without looking back. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't open. I knew what they would say. Congratulations. You did the right thing. You won. I kept walking. Whatever came next wasn't going to fit into that word anyway. What do you do after the truth finishes its work? A few weeks passed before things stopped moving on their own. Emails slowed. Meetings stopped being labeled urgent. People figured out which names not to say anymore. The investigation wrapped quietly. No dramatic announcement. Just a set of outcomes that couldn't be appealed. His son stayed terminated. No consulting role, no quiet return. The board cut off every path back in. The CEO never regained operational control. His title remained on paper for a while, then disappeared from the internal directory like it had never been there. I didn't go back. I got one last call from the board chair. He thanked me, said the system worked because someone followed it when it was uncomfortable. You could have handled this differently, he added, not accusing, just stating a fact. I know, I said, and I meant it. After that, the calls stopped. My phone went quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. At night, the wind rattled the window of my apartment, sharp and uneven, like it couldn't decide what it wanted. I slept anyway. I'm not sure I won. That word still doesn't sit right. Winning implies celebration, or at least relief. I didn't feel either. I knew I couldn't undo what I started, even if I wanted to. And some days, I did. I didn't feel clean or heroic. I felt finished, like something had closed behind me without asking if I was ready. The system corrected itself. That part is true. It did exactly what it was designed to do once it couldn't look away anymore. But systems don't check on the people who trigger them. They just move forward. I walked away without fixing the mess inside me. I left it there, unsettled, because pretending it wasn't messy would have been another lie. Here's the lesson I landed on. Whether I wanted one or not, doing the right thing doesn't make you whole. It just makes you responsible. And once you accept that, you don't get to take it back.